Welcome back, everyone. Gabe Goche here with the Southern Utah Hockey Report. And of course, I got my buddy Tommy Rupp. Tommy, good to see you. We missed you in that last interview with Jack Skilly, but we got you back for this big one. How you doing, bud?
Not too bad, man. Enjoying some good hockey, enjoying some good hockey drama. That's always floating around the NHL teams. And I was bummed to miss out on that Skilly interview. That was awesome that you did that. So thanks for taking the reins on that, and
Yeah.
it turned out really good. But I'm looking forward to this one with Matt.
Yeah, no, this one's going to be a good one. And luckily, we're on a time crunch because we'd have to keep the reins on him too. So, Matt Johnson, I've known him for just over 10 years now. He's from Lynn, Massachusetts, played his college hockey at Norwich, Salem, also at Providence, and then he's been coaching for the last 15 years. He's coached back east, junior, midget hockey, and predominantly he's been in Las Vegas for the last 11 years, coaching junior hockey, Bantam, midget. He also coaches junior right now with the Henderson Force. And he also works on private training, private lessons with the local kids in Las Vegas. So, Matt Johnson, thanks for joining us here, bud.
Thank you, guys. Gabe, good to see you again, as always. Thomas, nice to meet you. Good to see you. Look forward to talking hockey with you.
Absolutely.
Right on, man. Well, let's jump in. And as I prefaced, you're from Massachusetts. You played your college hockey D3 at Norwich and Salem, and then you got into coaching. So I'd like to jump right into your coaching career because I've always been fascinated with just your style and just your approach to coaching players. So how'd you get into coaching? And then just talk about your style as a junior coach.
Personally, my dad was a high school coach, an athletic director. So naturally, just being brought up with it kind of made the smooth transition. But also, like, I was that kid when I was at prep school, you know, starting to think of your own lines and getting creative with that. And it kind of transpired as it went down. And then as soon as the college career came to an end, um, I had a couple buddies that were in it and they just said, "Hey, we got a position. What are your thoughts?" And, you're a typical 24-year-old and not playing pro hockey. So you're like, "Hey, what's the next step?" And it was an opportunity and I took it. And then, kind of took my experiences from prep school and college and what I liked from certain coaches and then what I didn't like from other coaches and kind of morphed it. And you kind of create your own little identity as a coach. Going to Norwich was great because it was a military school. So it kind of drilled home structure and obedience and just, you know, do your role. This is your job type of mentality, which, you can kind of pull from Bill Belichick in the glorious run the Patriots had for 20 years. And then you just get into some of now that I'm on the West Coast, more of the West Coast style, the roller hockey. So, if, you find that nice merge of, hey, we need the discipline and the commitment in the D zone, but in the offense, you can kind of have that roller hockey puck possession type of mindset.
No, that's awesome. I really like that too. And you kind of led me right into my question because I was going to talk about the different styles of East Coast hockey versus West Coast hockey. And what's so crazy, you'll even see this in the NHL where the Eastern Conference teams play different than the Western Conference teams. So growing up, I only played against West Coast teams. I did some Midwest teams, everything like that. We even, I ran into Little Caesars along the way, everything. But Massachusetts on its own is a different planet. Like, I mean, you talk about the youth hockey movements there, the availability, whether it is like the ball hockey scene there, or again, you've got your high school teams that are very competitive. You got a lot of kids that are coming out of there going Division 1 or Division 3 or right into the NHL. What do you think it is about Massachusetts that just kind of sets that tone a little bit more than the rest of the states?
Well, one thing's culture, right? Like you have so much accessibility to hockey at a young age. I mean, I can remember being a mite and our youth program would have what we called Hockey Night in Boston, where all the youth teams, mite through Bantam, would go on school buses, would go in and watch BU and BC, right? So right off the bat, you're engaged in Division 1 college hockey, not pro, just college. And every kid that grows up in that area, I mean, we have Harvard, Boston College, BU, Northeastern, UNH is Hockey East is, you have 10 schools within an hour radius. So it just makes it that much more accessible for kids. And then, Division 3, there's so many. You have the NESCAC, you have the, which used to be, you had ECAC East, ECAC West, but now they've disbanded into different segments. But there's so much more hockey in a condensed market, whereas on the West Coast, it's so dispersed. It makes it really tough for the exposure. And just the old East Coast, you got to live through the snow, so you do get a little bit tougher and having to deal with it. Wake up at 5 a.m., shovel, go out, not flip flops and sandals to the rink every day.
You're spot on, man. Like it, because I know you went back and you did like a stint in between your Vegas and then you're like it's not for me anymore, and you've been in Vegas now for just about 10 years, and you've seen a lot of great players, come through Vegas, but also just the Southwest
Mhm.
of youth hockey. And to that point of what Tommy was asking you, now that you're coaching junior hockey, talk about the kids that you're recruiting, you're looking for, and predominantly like where are they coming from?
So, I mean, I'll be honest, this year we actually are 50% from kids from Vegas. We started out the season with that.
That's I'll just stop you there, but like that is awesome to hear because again, that's what we started 10 years ago, is to try and
Mhm.
build up that market, that youth hockey, to have them essentially play from U8 to U18. So sorry to interrupt, but keep going.
No, correct. I mean, the biggest thing is your kids are going to have to move away at some point, right? And this is something Gabe and I talked about, and when we were at Las Vegas Ice Center with the Storm, our goal was to keep kids with the ability to stay home. Gabe moved away at a young age to go up to prep school, and then he went up to the BCHL, and then he was at Denver, and then he was pro. So it's like, you know, I feel a lot of times, especially on the West Coast, because they have to travel so far, kids are forced to mature really, really early. Um, and it has its pros and cons depending on the kid. Whereas on the East Coast, yeah, I mean, you play prep school, you can play, and you can be a day student, meaning you're living at home, you're going to the prep school, you're playing prep school hockey, and you're still living with mom and dad, you know, not having to worry about billet families in that situation. So, with Vegas and our goal, you know, we've really done a good job of building that at home feeling. Most of our kids we're looking for kids who understand where they're at, right? Tier 3 hockey is good hockey. There are a lot of really good players, and with the market the way it is now, um, we're trying to find kids who understand, like, hey, I'm going to be an ACHA Division 1 player, right? This is where I'm at. This is what I'm going to be good at, and getting them to understand that, hey, in the USPHL, I might be a 75 to 100 point scorer on the top line on the power play. If I try and go to the NCDC or the NA, I might not create that exposure for myself because I'm going to be on a third line checking role or a fourth line or in and out. So you're going to miss out on opportunities because some people want to just chase that. Hey, I need to play in the NCDC instead of being like, you know what? I'm going to play at tier 3 and I'm going to be the best tier 3 player out there and then create a lot. I mean, there are a lot of Division 3 commitments and ACHA Division 1 kids coming out of, the USPHL right now. So you do have to deal with advisors. Our team, we have 2 kids from Quebec that were on the team last year that returned. We have another kid from high level Alberta, um, Colorado, Michigan, Idaho. So it's just a network too. But to go back with when Gabe and I started, that was the thing, kids and their families, that's what you're selling. The hockey takes care of itself, right? But it's the overall product. It's the coaching staff and the parents and the player believing that the coaches have the best interest in their son. And it's not just you know, hey, we're going to get you a bait and switch type of thing. Like they get the product that you are told that they're going to get, and then your reputation will just continue to, bring kids in.
No, that's awesome. And you speaking to the 50% of your kids being, Vegas kids, kind of like we were talking about with Massachusetts having its own culture, its own kind of swagger to the game of hockey itself. But one thing that I've noticed is hockey echoes throughout its community in a different way. Like the best example I can give of that is like the Broad Street Bullies back in the day, right? Like people were scared to go into Philadelphia because they knew it was just going to be a rowdy house. The one thing that I've found with Vegas teams, all of them are gritty, and I just have to think that that comes from the lifestyle. Like, look, it's tough to make a dollar in Vegas. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of different markets, a lot of different things being like catered to, and
Mhm.
the minute that you're out of the hamster wheel, like it's tough to get back in it. Do you see the same thing? And if you do see that, can you speak to like what do you think kind of hardens them in a different way than other hockey markets?
I mean, the biggest thing is you do have a lot of blue collar,
Mhm.
right? There is a lot of blue collar families here that do grind it out, and they give their kid every opportunity they have, and it's hey, if we're going to get up at 6 a.m. to be on the ice before school, then you're going to work your butt off. And the other part too is there are a lot of East Coast transplants, a lot of Detroit. Um, they all seem to come from snowy areas, and then they say, they finally got tired of
Snowbirds.
shoveling, and then they relocate to the desert. But to go back to that previous statement about culture, is you do get the Buffalo, the Boston, the New York, Chicago, Minnesota area where now they're in Vegas. So that lifestyle and that culture now translate onto the ice a little bit, which again, when you're trying to build something, you do need a little bit of that blue collar chip on your shoulder type.
Yeah, or as you would say, piss and vinegar.
Piss and vinegar.
Yeah. So speaking of the piss and vinegar, right? And you do a lot of individual training, and this is where we actually were so successful because of what you brought to Vegas as far as the skating and the skill standpoint. So I'd like for you to talk about the facility that's opened up Elevate, but also I'd like for you to go into detail of youth kids and training in the off season versus playing in like showcases and in tournaments in the off season.
100%. So, I mean, the biggest thing and the first thing that I tell every parent, and this is back when we started, was if your kid doesn't want to be here, don't bring them because it's not going to work at 6 a.m. Um, and the other part too is as a hockey coach, you're passionate about it, right? You're not getting up at 6 a.m. because you just want to go out and make a buck. There are a lot of other jobs that you can make a buck. You're doing it because you love the game, you love coaching, and you want to be a part of it. So if the kid's going to be out there, he better be putting in his all. Because if the coach has more energy than the players, there's an issue. So, I try to make that very upfront and hammer home that point to the parents so that they know to the kid, like, hey, we go. And then all of a sudden it turns into the kid wanting to do it because, quite frankly, in our society, coaches are afraid to push kids, right? They're afraid to push the buttons and get them to that next level because, you know, you yell at a kid and someone's recording, and next thing you know, there's 35 safe sport violations on you. Or, you know, Timmy's mom doesn't like the way you yelled at Johnny, but Johnny's parents said, hey, I want you to hammer my kid, so it does make it tough for coaches. But when you have a collective group that really want to be pushed and see the value in it, it really is rewarding. To go to Elevate, it's a really cool little setup. We talked about it a little bit earlier. It's like 95 by 45. Great for small area training, and individual skills. Can roughly get like 4 to 8, depending on the size and the age. Um, and it's just a little additional piece that kids don't really get. Growing up, we used to play street hockey all the time. So that was like our own little call to elevate. Like we would go out with our friends and you would play. You don't see that as much anymore. in terms of individual training, like working on it yourself,
Mhm.
right? Everything in today's world is so, I need a trainer for this, I need a trainer for that, I got to do this, I have to do that, instead of just, hey, I'm going to go out my backyard and shoot 100 pucks by myself, right? Very few kids have that internal motivation. So you got to provide them something, um, you know, and then to go back or to talk on the topic of the tournaments. I mean, Gabe, how many parents would go around every summer and spend, we'll call it 3,000 a tournament and play in 10 tournaments during the summer, right? They'd go from Vegas to three in California, one in Colorado, two in Michigan, one in Boston. They just spent $30,000 in the summer to play all these games. But when you do the math and the stats are out there, what, you touch the puck for a minute and a half, maybe, right? And the summer is a time for one. I personally believe kids do need to shut it down a little bit. We've created this 24/7 culture that there's no enjoyment for the start of the season. Like the season ends, okay, here we go. We got 12 weeks of training, and then it's right back into the start of the season. There's no break. Whereas back in the day, you'd stop, you'd play baseball for a couple, 2 months, and then you'd skate once a week just to stay in touch. But when the start of the season came around, you were excited, you were jonesing. Everything's just so monotonous. It becomes just another day. Um, and that's where I think, honestly, with these parents realize, hey, invest in a power skating coach and do that during the summer. You don't have to go full board crazy, but work on some of the little things that are going to make your game better. Playing U10 AAA in Chicago in April and June, if you want a
Scouts are
family
not
vacation,
going to
take a
that one.
family vacation. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Scouts
exactly.
are not going to that one.
Right. And that's the thing, we talk about it until they get checked and get knocked down and play, who knows what's going to happen. And once puberty hits, right? Like, you know, that's a big growth spurt, maybe, and that's a tough part. And these parents put so much pressure on these 9, 10, 11, 12 year olds to perform and think that, these NHL GMs are going to be sitting there watching them at their, Stars and Stripes tournament. It's like, just enjoy the process. Your kid's going to leave at some point. They might play junior, they might not, they might play college, they might not, but just enjoy the process. There's too much focus. Parents are videotaping every second, every practice, every game. At some point, the kid's going to resent going to the rink. And I think that's a big part of it, right? Like you get in the car, dad's hammering you, hey, you missed this pass, blah, 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 blah. Like, how about just take a step back, enjoy the process, and just let your kid play for a little bit.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, it's really good insight there too. And it's something that I really do hope people listen to, because I was one of those kids that quite frankly, I got burned out, where it was just constantly everyone's in your face, and you still want to be a kid, especially at these younger ages and everything. And everyone seems to have all the answers now with social media and the amount of information that they're taking in. But to lead to my final question here, and I always like to ask this because every state is a little bit different. Every hockey program is a little bit different, and you've been in a lot of different environments, high level on every single thing that you've gone to. Everything is going so right in Vegas for hockey. It's a great momentum, it's great positivity. But if I were to give you like control of that for a day, what's the one thing you would change?
Oh man, got to be careful. Where's this being aired?
you
We're small
don't
right now.
have to add
We're
anybody.
small,
But
but it's going to be live.
No, honestly, I think the biggest thing that, and it kind of starts with USA Hockey, um, the ADM model. We've created a lot of really skilled players. They can go through cones like no other, but they actually have, at 16, trying to teach a kid a concept is tough, right? There's no real concept. And that's why, this half ice playing 4-on-4 at mites. Like I asked the guys from Minnesota, like there's a tournament that comes down I think it's the Kings of Vegas or something like that. And I was reffing it in the Minnesota Machine, I think it was. And I asked the coach, I go, hey, what do you guys, do? Do you actually do ADM? They're like, well, yes and no. Our house league does ADM, but we take our top players and we start from scratch and we play full ice and they just train them. You're not worrying about going through cones. You're learning offsides. You're learning positioning. You know, there's not really a ton of skill training that you can do at 8, 9, 10 years old. Their bodies aren't developed, right? Their brains aren't fully developed. So if you can just teach them the basics of positioning and understanding the game, when they're able to handle a puck and stick handle and shoot, then you can work on the mechanics in the skatings and the knee bend and the ankle flex and the posture when they can control their body. At 8, 9, 10, usually it's just kind of controlled chaos.
Yeah, it's flubber.
And I understand they want to get rid of the best player takes the puck and go, but we've also, hey, stop them. I think we've taken that part out of the game where it's like, hey, everybody's equal, everybody's got to be fair. We don't keep score. You learn to lose, you learn to hate losing, right? Like, and that's a big part of it. So that would probably be the main thing I would do. One would just kind of focus at the 8U, 9U, and even the 7, 8, 9U, and really focus on actual hockey, just your basic systems, right? Sure. Like forechecking,
breakouts,
D zone coverage, breakouts, just teaching the little mechanics because they're just shooting off 1 foot for a 9-year-old, which now that they have these P92 22 flex sticks that are $400 for a 9-year-old, and parents got to have them because it's going to make them shoot like Connor McDavid. It is absurd. Like there's no back to the basic fundamentals on how to do it properly, and that's where I think we miss a lot, right? Like kids at 9 years old, because they got these little light pucks or the blue pucks or whatever, are going bow down. It's great for their Instagram. It's great for mom and dad's reel. They can get all the congratulations. But then the kid's 15 and he can't shoot because he's got a 75 flex and never actually was taught proper weight transfer.
Right.
And then they're like, well, what happened? I used to be able to go. So that would be the one big thing that I would switch if I could.
Yeah. And with that too, it's about building a complete player, right? And you can I agree with everything. It's a matter of just doing it the right way. And doing it the right way is having a mix of really everything, because to your point, and I agree, is being able to have these kids understand situational awareness on the ice. And then once they have that situational awareness, then they can start applying their skill set to that gameplay. So no,
correct.
I agree with that, man. And go ahead.
And one thing is, so they did this half ice to try to get more kids playing, more touches and everything.
Yeah.
And you look at like a little league field, right? They still have 9 players. They still play. They just have shrunk it. So instead of doing half ice, right, when you got the boards, like I think every rink should have 2 sets of boards and you go from the top of the circles in. And that way you
100%.
still have the blue lines, you still have the red lines, and you can play 5-on-5, and you can have a full 8U team instead of just, 8 kids on a team. You could actually have 15 and you could play a full game. But I also think that part of it is these rinks are now so privatized that it's all about the money, unfortunately, right? And as many kids as we can get on the ice and get them going through the hockey 1, 2, 3 to learn to play, move it up, show everybody we care. But where is the real development, right? Because if they really did care, you would want to teach them the game and work on it, not just, hey, okay, you're passed through next. It's let's learn the game of hockey, and we're finding it at the junior level. The hockey IQ aspect, has decreased. And that's really the separation from guys that are able to play at the tier 1, tier 2, or the tier 3 level, or the guys that are able to go to college and higher up. And there were some guys that are just so skilled that the hockey IQ doesn't impact them. But for those guys that are on the border, that's the difference. Like a smart kid versus a skilled kid. The skilled kid may have more sex appeal to start, but the guy who's making the plays, keeping the pucks in, getting pucks in deep, not making the turnovers at the blue line, who's going to be the one to save you or hurt you at the end? But everybody's become so Instagram reeled where they want to do the Zegras or the Michigan as it's originally called. They're focused on that, not understanding why they have to get the puck out on the blue line in the last 30 seconds of a game. Right.
Yep.
So,
oh, man, it's you. This is why we do this, right?
yeah.
It's to talk about that, and that this is great stuff. And again, appreciate your time. Last question for you. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a two-parter.
Okay.
So it's also going to go with Tommy too, but I'd like for you to share your favorite hockey memory as a player and your favorite hockey memory as a coach.
As a player, I would have to say, there's a couple different ones that stand out in goals or whatnot, but like memorable, I would just say like my last prep school game, my last prep school goal, which ended up being the game winner, was a pass from my brother.
Oh, sweet.
So, it's like one of those things that just kind of you stick out. I mean, we've had shootouts, penalty shots. I mean, at Norwich, game winning goals and stuff like that. Like my first call, I remember that, but like just the fact that it was my brother to make the pass to me to score the goal in OT kind of at the prep school, that's just one that sticks with me. As a coach, it's tough. Again, just because there's so many different ages that I've coached, so there's different segments, right? Like, I think it was my U14, my last year with the Storm before I moved back to Boston. We had a game against San Diego. It was the President's Day tournament, and the San Diego Saints, I think it was the Saints, they had beat us like the first game, and then we ended up beating them in the championship for our last home tournament before nationals. And, we really had a really good group. And it was nice because the kids at that point had found out I was leaving. So they kind of on the bench, like I overheard a couple of them talking. So it was nice to have that
Let's do it for the little guy.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to see the angry elf.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many kids, and not to go into it, but there's so many kids that have come through Vegas that, are still playing. I mean, Jack Lackus just had a hat trick or 4 goals for Chippewa. Chase Laurie is up in the AJ up in Grand Prairie. Fuzzy's in the NCDC. Austin Moline's in the USHL, like there's a handful of kids through that group that started with Gabe and I that are having some success in the hockey world. So it's just nice to see.
Yeah. And Austin was drafted in the NHL draft this year.
Yep.
So,
Philadelphia.
Yeah, that was amazing. So, man, again, thank you, Maddie, for hopping on.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And we're definitely going to get you on for other ones because, again, you bring so much knowledge, but it's also talking about having the right people in the game. So,
no, I appreciate it. I look forward to it.
Right on. Well, again, Matthew Johnson from the Henderson Force, head coach, GM down in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Gabe Goche. Tommy Rupp, thanks for watching the Southern Utah Hockey Report.
See you at the rink.